So what is because most people have heard of a wine sommelier.
Yeah.
But so what is a sommelier in general?
A sommelier in general is that a person that really knows a drink really well and taste, and also compare it or combine it with food. So it's the pairing of the food and the drinks. And as milk sommelier, that's probably not really the good word for me. I don't do that. So I'm not a sommelier in the correct sense of the word. And what's also important is that the sommelier always works in a restaurant. So I had a restaurant in the past, but I don't work there anymore. So the word milk sommelier was given to me by a friend of mine. She is an artist, Sietske Klooster, and she invited me a few years ago. She heard of me that I have to go back. Because I think I have to start the story of becoming a milk sommelier from the beginning. And the beginning, I think, was when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So that's a long time ago, because I'm now 44. I was going to a farm every year in Wezepe, that's in the east of the Netherlands, by Boer Bertus, Farmer Bertus. And that was the first time that I drink raw milk, that I know. And when I drank it for the first time, I was really overwhelmed by the flavor already at that time. I thought, wow, this is delicious.
Doesn't every Dutch kid do that when they have their first milk? It's like the heavens open up and they see angels.
I think it's really Dutch to consume a lot of milk. But I'm not sure if every kid has that. But I was really surprised by the flavor and the richness of it. And I thought, wow, this is, if I go to the supermarket, I like the milk there as well, but it was not that rich as flavor than I drink the raw milk. But the really interesting thing for me was that when I go the second day to the farm and I drink the milk again, the raw milk, and the flavor was already different than the first day. So, and then I thought, wow, milk has different flavors and changes all the time. So that was when I was 8 years old. Many years later, I think something like when I was the beginning of 20s, I worked on a farm, not a dairy farm, and I drink a lot of milk. I really like milk, so I just bought a lot of milk, especially raw milk from goats at that time. And so at that time, I just started to drink something like 4 liters. In Americas, I think it's 1 gallon, isn't it?
Yeah.
4 liters. So a gallon a day. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Because I really liked it. And I did it for many years. And I was also at the start of a think tank, Edible Rotterdam. That was a think tank about urban farming here in Rotterdam. And when we had meetings, sometimes I brought milk to the meetings, and I say, oh, you have to taste it because this one is different than the other one from the last week or the last meeting. And one of the people at that group was Rien Bongers. He's a company owner of a company that do debates on social issues, and he get a really big assignment from our biggest corporation in the Netherlands, Friesland Campina, to start an online platform to discuss and tell stories about the dairy industry. And when he get that assignment, he just asked me, Bas, you're really a milk lover. You have to write something on my platform. So I wrote an article. I had to really think about it. What can I write? Because I can write that I love milk, but I think that's not really a story. But I was also trained as a farmer, and I knew that milk changes all the time. So I just wrote a story that, in my opinion, is that milk can be terroir. And terroir is just a word that you probably know from the wine industry. So
I don't know it.
No, you don't know. It's really French.
Not that fancy.
Terroir, and it's that if you if you have terroir, that there's some sort of locality that you can really experience in your product. And in wine is really the region and the soil and that sort of thing. So it's also referred terroir is like terroir. It's the soil.
So when you hear those people making the jokes like, "Oh, you can really taste the earthiness from the region."
Yeah,
Okay.
and in wine it is really like that. But
Right. Sure,
in
of
my
course.
opinion, also as a farmer, I grow crops. If you grow crops, and I grow crops on different farms in different type of soil, then you know that crops act differently if you have a different type of soil, and they also sometimes taste a bit different. So in my opinion, if you produce everything what you produce in real connection with the soil, can be terroir. And in that way, I think milk can be terroir as well, because in my opinion, a good setup of farming or cattle or dairy farming is that the dairy, the cows, go outside on the meadow and graze their feed or food on the land from the soil. So I just wrote an article and say, okay, everything what you produce in connection to the soil, also milk, can be terroir. So I just said at that moment to farmers, I think your milk can be terroir, and you can send it to me to taste it, and I want to sell it for you. Because at that moment I had a farm in Rotterdam and also a store, Uit Je Eigen Stad. We will talk probably later about that. So that was the article that I wrote. Because of the platform, there were more people coming to Rien to write articles, and one of them was Sietske Klooster, the person I already referred to. She's an artist, and she had the same. She was also intrigued by milk and the differences. So she wrote my article, and she wanted to do some sort of tasting session, and she invited me and others to that session. And she asked me, "How do you taste?" And I'd never thought about how do you taste things, because in a way I'm just a normal farmer and I like things or I don't like things.
Is that different in a literal translation in Dutch? How do you taste? Because in English that could also come across as a bit of a different type of question that she could be asking.
Okay. You have to explain. No, so it was about flavor.
What is your tasting routine or process?
Okay.
No, I get it, but it's same as like, how do you paint? How do you taste? Because you're an expert, right? Yeah.
Some people think that I'm an expert. I'm still not really convinced about it.
We'll go back to that later.
But she asked me to, how do you do that? So at that moment I had a farm, including a restaurant, and I had some other restaurant colleagues, and one of them, she was a trained wine sommelier. So I asked her, Muis, she called. The translation is mouse. Mouse, how do you taste, and how do you do that? The flavor and the testing and so she learned me how they do it with wine. So I told Sietske, okay, probably we have to do it like this. And she made a new project called the Milky Ways. And she said, I want that you join, and you are my milk sommelier. So then I was. So it's not something that I think or I just thought of. So it's...
You didn't use it as like your Twitter handle back in the day?
But because we had that project, we just decided to use the word to get more information how you can influence or create the flavor in the milk. So at that moment, we just start to using the word milk sommelier. She put it on my head, and so we used the word milk sommelier, and it was 2015. And at that moment, in April, 1st of April, the milk quota went off the milk.
What do you mean?
In Europe, we had rules that you can produce amount of milk or kilograms of milk.
So like a cap, like a limit to how much milk.
Yeah. And they decided to stop that because there was more question on the international market about good milk. So Europe decided to stop with that. And it was on the 1st of April of 2015. So the media also want to tell that story, but it's a bit of it's a difficult story and it's not really sexy in a way. So they want to tell that story by also creating some sort of other story behind it that is more sexy and more easygoing. So at the 1st of April, I get a lot of telephone calls from media, like the radio companies. So they can ask me to explain what was going on with the milk quota, but also tell something about milk in a more simple way. And they called me because I was the milk sommelier. And then you see that how media works, because when one person is calling you, then the next media is calling you, and the next media, and the next media. So that was I think the real start of becoming the first milk sommelier of the world in a way. So it started with the radio company, and then Sietske has a really nice project called the Milk Salon, the milking parlor in a pop-up store in Amsterdam. And there was I think something like Munchies or something. It's an international blog about food. And it was an English article, and then you get the Daily Telegraph writing an article about me. And then you get a telephone call from the BBC radio if you want to go to London to make a radio show on that. And then someone listen it from an international marketing company, and then you get a telephone call from South Korea. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, it just kind of took off like a rocket.
And then you becoming something that was not really the idea. And it's still not the idea.